Kia ora everyone, thank you for joining me in my workshop tour. I wasn't sure where to start, so I figured I'll start with the oldest, or my first ever machine tool that I've ever owned, which is this thing, is a Ozito drill press with a 5-speed belt and well, just look at it. It rattles like hell because I think some grease from the grease that's been packed in the bearing has come out and is rattling. I am surprised it's still standing, but if anything, I can salvage it for that motor. That's where all the power tools live, mostly the grinding. And if you come through here, this is the back of my mill. Up there you can see the power cord. And then you walk through this little hallway. This is where the chips are. I put in a little basket there just to stop the splashing. This path used to always be just kind of wet, you know. This is the front of the mill. See various crap on the shelf next to it. My welder with my scratch tag set up. Now this mill's about 7 months old. You can see it's got the Renisho in there and everything. It is a Haas mini mill, running quite well. Probably more than I needed at that time, but to be honest, probably more than I need right now. But it's a good piece of kit. I'm enjoying it. Swinging around to the side, you can see the snake monster at the bottom. And my bins of crap I'm not sure where to put instead. So this is air fittings, some lathe tooling. I don't have a lathe anymore, which I really want. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Taps, well, tap handles. This is a some scraps that I am actually turning. You can see that I've got it marked out for cutting, but I'm too lazy to do anything. Moving up, the Renisho problem there. Got some tools in. My 16mm indexable and no, oh, beautiful bit of rust in all these collets. It is freezing from my heater. You can see my cheapo, I don't know, like 80 bucks I paid for this thing, but that's all I need in terms of a surface plate. I can feel some grit on it. Great. It's my surface gauge. Works perfectly. Very cheap. Probably paid less than 100 bucks for it. It's way more accurate than my bloody cheapo micrometer is. This is my work desk. Up there you can see my monitor, so setting on a little arm. My tool organization. So it's got, you know, bins of end mills, mixtures of drills, taps, reamers, all sorts of crap. This is my bin of I wish I had another one of these organizers so I can organize these things. Mostly nuts and bolts, screws, washers. Crap I should probably find a home for, you know. This is actually my first ever milling project, which is I guess the proper title for it is a waste of material. But it is a micrometer holder. It's got a little pass bin in the back, but the real deal is you plug a little micrometer in here, you clamp down, then you've got your hands free to use your micrometer as you want. This is probably the most precise piece of kit I have in this entire garage, which is the Starrett 0 to 25mm micrometer. Got some materials worked out, computer, blah blah blah. It's my old milling vise. If anybody needs a 6-inch milling vise, let me know, because I put that in my mill and it fits just barely, but when the y-axis has traveled all the way to the back, it scratches the back column. I didn't notice that till I put a dent in it. What a fucking idiot I am. Down here, that black box is a 3-phase converter. So it draws in, I believe, 15A 240V single phase AC, and it turns it into 20 amps, my bad, and 3-phase, and then that gets used to power this thing, which is a rotary air compressor. And I had another air compressor, which was a normal piston type, noisy as hell, and when you're the only person working in here kind of late at night or kind of early in the morning, you wanna make sure the neighbors aren't calling the fucking noise control on you. Under here as well, you can see my computer, which I built for like $80, chucked in a new graphics card, and this is a refurbished computer, and for about $300 I have a really good CAD cam station for what I do, which is brilliant. Drawer full of junk. As you can see, my organization skills aren't that outstanding. Now, moving around to the side, garage door, I get this open during the summertime. It is freezing right now. I should probably insulate it, but I am lazy. Now this thing is a Blacksmith 8-inch shaper. Why did I forget that? Now I built this under the assumption that it works. Well, from what I heard, it did work at one point in its life. Now, the problem, and you can see that it doesn't work because I've got all this crap hanging off it like old used benzo blades I don't know what to do with. And now it's currently gathering dust and rust. Now, I'm not sure what the hell happened. I believe I might need to replace the motor. Because you can see this is a 3-phase piece of kit. I've tried, this is a little 3-phase extension cord I made to come out of that converter to hook into this thing instead of just to the air compressor, and when I hooked it up I got nothing. No wiring, no powering up. Maybe I fucked it up on the colors, but I don't actually think I did, which is the worst part. You know, 16 amps, there's plenty of power coming off of the converter. In fact, this motor shouldn't even draw 16 amps because it's only a 2 horsepower motor. So I'm not sure what's happened. I want to get this thing running at one point in my life, but I'm a bit busy right now with all the other crap going on. The feed box thing, this goes in here with something under it. There's a spring that goes under it, and what you do is you can switch. Essentially, you switch vertical or horizontal feed of this thing, whether or not it's feeding vertically or horizontally, using that little switch. But it broke off. I'm not sure, either during transport or it was like that when the guy decided to sell it. But Blacksmith actually still sells parts for these machines. These are not very new machines, they're very old machines made in the UK, but they still support this thing, which is great because I think I need to actually switch out this whole thing out and possibly a bit of this gear mechanism, because there's a few teeth missing here and there. To be honest, it's a shaper. If it misses one feed, we'll just get it on the next one. It doesn't actually matter that much. It's, yeah. This is the only clean surface that's currently sitting in my garage, and the reason for this is because I want to mount a vise on here. And when I get that thing finished, and I'll talk about that in a minute, I'll get a vise on here, and what I want to do is turn this into like a little hand sanding station or a finishing station, so I can essentially watch YouTube and hand sand, because in my grinding room it's a bit of a pain in the ass to get light. Love and hate, LPS3, good stuff. Smell, you know, I've got that crap everywhere. That whole thing is lathed in LPS3. This whole space where these two cabinets are standing, this is mostly like machine tooling packages, refractometer, you know, shims, weird bits of stuff like that. I'm not sure where to put. I don't know. And this has all the leather working stuff. I used to do quite a bit of it, but nowadays I'm only really making knife sheets with leather. I do want to get back to one day and maybe figure out how to make proper pattern shears, because I do have a press back there that I'd love to like press out some patterns and then just sew them up and then send them out, and maybe get a sewing machine in here and everything. But anyway, this space here, and maybe including where this cabinet and this might have to move, is I want to try and get a lathe in here, a manual lathe. I don't think I have a space left in this entire space for a CNC lathe, but I think I want to try and get a manual lathe in there. There's a Taiwanese CNC Swiss lathe that I've been looking at, but I'll be honest, I can barely get my head around 3 axis. 5 fucking axis. Holy shit, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go have a look at some of the Swiss lathe footage. It boggles my bloody mind, my simpleton mind. Okay. But anyway, the plan is on a lathe in here, because I used to have a little benchtop lathe where that drill press was, and it wasn't powerful, but holy shit was it handy. You know, when I was doing weird projects, and not having lathes is actually quite painful. I have to like now design things around round objects that I can buy from the hardware store, rather than design and then make the parts myself. Yeah, it's a weird thing. So this thing has actually been dismantled right now, and I might do a video on building the rest of it, is going to be a reciprocating sanding machine. So there's some bits and pieces here, and you can see that this motor used to mount with that side down on these two blocks and with this rail running at the bottom. And what that did was this would spin, obviously, and this arm would mount to this side, and when that would spin, this front end would go forward and backward, and that back end as it spins. And this is some DIY CNC kits, linear rail stuff, like aux builds, I believe it's called. And I've got a little plate on here, and it rides on these rails, and it's not very precise, but it's exactly what I need it to do. So what I plan to do is I'm gonna make some steel arms and a aluminium offset thingy, so that I don't have to use wobbly wooden parts, because I'm not a fucking barbarian. And hopefully what I'm looking to do is that I'm gonna have a little block of aluminium on here, and what that will do is it will just travel back and forth about this much, the idea, and it will have a bit of sandpaper on it, so I just have to hold down the part and then it will sand it for me. If that idea doesn't seem right, I might switch it around, so I'll put a little T-bar here, bolt that in, and then put a little screw to hold down the part, so I just have to hold the sandpaper over the part and it will do the reciprocating motion for me. Hopefully. I have all that good sandpaper that I'm not using, so may as well put use to it. So that's like my machining area and my CAD CAM station, precision measurement, my machine rebuilding. I think it's an electrical issue mostly, which I suck at. Other bits and pieces, I believe there's a, what is under? That's a multimeter, right? My pride and joy, my Haas mini mill. Some odd bits and pieces there, like old fixtures, V blocks. Now moving over to the side, this is essentially our family history. The crap that's in here. Some of the stuff is from my previous jobs. There's some empty boxes in here. There's a 2 HP single phase motor in there, and brand new as well in there, and that was going to be used to power a power hammer. That plans fell through right now, at least for right now, and I might actually swap out that motor with the 3-phase motor that's in here, so I can run this machine off of a single phase. But I'm not sure what the RPM differentiation might be and all that stuff. Though I would rather have a single phase machine than a 3-phase machine. In fact, if I could have had a rotary air compressor in single phase, I would have rather had that. But sadly, you can't have a hot chick and fuck her too, so I'm stuck with that. However, I do believe I can swap the motor out. I just have to be creative about what's inside and move around it. You can see some old bearings. Oh man, these need some serious care. The actual laces feel quite good. bearing housings, things like that. This is all from the power hammer project that I never saw through. Look at this bloody monstrosity, you know. This was at one point was gonna get machined into a sleeve. Yeah. You can see the remnants of the power hammer just behind that big tall column there. I actually want to salvage it for the raw materials, but I haven't had the time to drag it out. This is my materials rack, as you can see. Religious education, that's obviously what I'm doing in here. Some like packing material, some raw wood I got from a very kind and generous donator from way down in Wellington. He said if I just pay for the postage, he will pack as much offcuts that he can into an envelope and then just send it to me, which is very nice of him. That's like dark oak. These are all hardwoods, by the way. White ash. I believe this is maple. No, that's more white ash. That's white oak. So yeah, there's some good stuff in here. This is actually a piece of stabilized wood. There was a guy selling stabilized wood in New Zealand, and I have a feeling that he has gone out of business. He does not make these anymore, which is a big shame. Because they're really good stabilized wood. As you can see, I've cut a big chunk out of it to make a collar for a kitchen knife. But if I ever come across those again, I'm buying as much as I can. Oh yeah, this is some rock maple, you know, offcuts. But that's massive. That's a lot of usable space I've got as handles, you know. And I basically got all this for like $12 NZ, which is like enough to buy maybe some lunch one day. It's amazing. Here's some titanium when I get around to making some knife handles that way. Some slabs of G10. This has a black G10 with a orange liner already glued to it. I don't like working with this stuff because the dust is very toxic and it just turns into powder. You can't get a good chip out of it. Just imagine that you're working with like cast iron. But unlike some of the other plastics I've worked with, these G10 and like micarta and things like that, they don't bloat even if you use coolant. It just contaminates the crap out of your coolant. So if I have a batch to run, I run them when I feel like changing out the coolant. It's disgusting, this stuff. Got some other materials, M390, 4V, aluminium bars. I got these with hopes of making Bali songs one day. So I'm just thinking, you know, either do a channeled one, like a one-piece construction, or two-piece construction, or just mill down about half of it and do a four-piece construction like you'd normally find. I've got some CPM 154, which is like a better version of 154 CM. I've actually got some sitting there, all cut up, ready to be milled into some blanks for some pocket fixies, which is pocket knives you can carry in your pockets. Wait, no, fixed knives you can carry in your pockets. These are some 05 blanks I got for quite a good price. These are like amazing, like completely precision ground. That means if I don't touch the flats, I don't have to do any finishing on them. Because they're flat, I just need to do some hand sanding or blast it or put it in the tumbler and it looks good. I love those things. These sandblasted blanks I'm getting from artisan supplies and things like that, I need to do all the finishing work on all the surfaces, which can get pretty tedious. Some big chunks of aluminium, no, I don't need to make any heat sinks, but they're great for fixturing. Now you can see down here I've got some cold roll 20 mils. This is all the stuff I had lying around from, you know, when I still had a lathe. Got some other stuff there. I still use these for, you know, forging and stuff. Some other leather related stuff there. These are riverbed rocks, which I use to do stonewashing in, and it makes a awful sound and not a very good finish unless you run them for a stupid long time. Now moving to the left again, you can see, let me give you something for reference. You know what? This is a wrapper for 1/2 meter tall and I want to say 15mm wide 01 bar right there. It's like my second pride and joy. Just look at it. Isn't she gorgeous? One day I want to make more use out of this thing when I get back to doing more forging. This is, if you've never seen anything like this before, it's called a fly press or a screw press, and what it essentially does, it's got a very high pitched, I'm not sure if that's the right term, but high pitched screw inside there, and it is greased like a whore on a Thursday night, and it uses momentum to apply downward pressure. Okay, now there's some things that needs to be looked at. If you see, just watch very carefully. I'm gonna turn the handles upwards, and you'll see that the screw moves, but the head of it doesn't move until the screw moves about quarter. That means that there's a spacer block in there that's been worn down and needs to be replaced, because this thing should move soon as you touch the handle. But I got this thing for a really great price. Shipping not so great, but the actual overall thing for an amazing price. All the ways are in good condition. They were lubed well throughout its life, and things like, there's no sign of, I say that as I find some, yeah, you know what, I just put oil on it every time I walk across it, basically. It just keeps it alive a little longer. The whole thing's bathed in oil. As you can see, I've tried to clean it up a little bit, but I've given up on that. I'm just using it as is. I might give it a new coat of paint after I go through it with some Rust-Oleum or something like that, but yeah, maybe when I have more time and I'm a millionaire, I can pay someone else to do it. But it's supposed to exert about 24 tons of force, downward force. However, because it comes with such velocity, I feel like it does a hell of a lot more than that. It's great for forging, and you can really feel the pressure going in. So I love it for pressing in bearings and things like that, or like sleeves, and it really does help, and it's got its place. I do feel like it's a bit big sometimes, but that's alright. It does its job, and I love it. I want to make some fixtures to go in there to help with the forging process, because currently there's a big cavity in there that you're supposed to put the tooling with, like, actually about this size sleeve up there lock it in place, and that's how you use it. Except I don't have any of those. I've just been using the side, which can't be great for it, but I'm only pressing in small bearings anyway, and it's done a pretty good job helping me with the forging. Probably never going to sell this, but who knows. The fact of the matter is I just love having it. This is a matter of pride, I'll be honest. That's not the most useful thing in the shop. Usefulness to taking up space ratio is pretty freaking low. This is my rotary tumbler. I did not make this. I bought this. There's a motor in there. Sorry about my shadow. There's motor in there, and it's just a single phase machine, and it just runs off a big wheel, and it's actually in a relatively good shape. Yeah, you can't see shit, can you? It's a pretty big cavity. I can fit like 5, 6, 7, 8 kitchen knives in there. I just chuck a shit ton of stones in it, fill it up to about 80%, and then let it run for a few hours, and it does give a pretty decent finish. If I was doing more smaller pots, I think I might go out and get some ceramic abrasives, especially if I was doing things like rust removal. Might chuck in some ceramic abrasives. That might really help with that, but I'm not really interested in that. This here is my forging setup. Over there is my home-built forge. Most of the parts you see up there, things like that, is from Artisan Supplies from Australia. They've got a headquarters out in Masterton. This stuff, the fire bricks that's under it, I found it quite difficult to find in New Zealand. There's a forge supplier that supplies NC forges, and if you ask them nicely, they will sell you some. Quite cheaply, actually. It's for relining their forges, but essentially I found these high temperature bricks, and then I built the rest of my forge around it. It's insulated with that ceramic forge insulation and a shit ton of Satanite. Over here, that's my anvil. It's 4140 that's been heat treated, and you can see some stuff I've been doing actually. And it does ring. Could probably use a bit of chain, but that's alright. It's probably the biggest piece of steel that I could find. I do have another one, but that's a medium carbon steel. That's not 4140, but that's been heat treated as well. I've been meaning to actually maybe chop this up to like about that much length, and just sell them off to people and trade me who wants these kind of anvils. I could probably sell them for like about $100, and I wouldn't make any profit on it, but I love to get more people into forging. I'm just gonna move myself to the grinding room. It's going to be quite difficult to see in here. I am going to bring the power cord. Hopefully this will help quite a bit. The only downside with this setup I have is that because legally I can't run any electrical lines down to the shed, because it will all be considered something other than a shed at that point. I just have to run an extension cable out from the garage, plug it in. I've got a little distribution box here with its own breaker, so I don't fuck anything up, even though I don't think there's anything in here even added up that will go over 10 amps really. So I'm gonna turn that light around so it's not as blinding. Hopefully, oh, that's not. Doesn't actually help. Does it? No. Okay. It's fine. You can stay as you are. And just point downwards. There we go. Okay, so this is where I originally started out, and when I only had this thing, and the drill press. So this is, if you're a machinist and you've never seen something like this before, this is a 72-inch by 2-inch belt grinder, and what that means is it runs these 72-inch long and 2-inch wide belts, and it's a very simple piece of kit. And if you're mechanically inclined and less lazy than I am, you could build something like this quite cheaply with a bit of metal and some for planning. I have a VFD and a 3-phase motor, which means I have infinitely variable speed. I chose that over the belt and pulley system of changing speeds because I am a lazy bastard, and that was only like $200 more, which was great. As you can see, it has become a bit of a dumping ground for crap, literally crap that just came off our toilet the other week. And this is where I store long pieces of material as well. As you can see, I've got my sound system in here, so I don't feel so lonely, and I can jam out as I'm doing some hand sanding and things like that. It's my first ever Vice. Ain't she so cute? And you can see I've got just tons of random supplies everywhere. Some copper flits. Love this stuff. If you're trying to get, if you want to get sandblasted finish off of your knives, or you've got some light rusting and you don't care about retaining that finish, which you probably don't because it already has some light rusting, what the hell are you doing to your knives? Get some flits on it and get rid of it real quick, no worries. Chipping hammer, rags, all that good stuff. This lives here, and all that does is it just collects excess dust coming off of the grinder. Now I'm not sure if you can see quite well, but I've got quite a few different belts, and I've got everything from 120 grit to, I believe this is a X30 from Norex belts. You need to take care of them better than I do because they've all curled up, and it's very annoying to uncurl them. These are what's called structured abrasives. So unlike these things, if you jam something with a sharp corner in there, it will ruin the belt. The fact that it's curled up is not doing it any favors. My first ever welder, AC only welder. To be honest, pretty big regret buying it because I ended up buying a DC welder real quick right afterwards. This is a this contains it's filled with canola oil for heat treating knives, and just under here you can see the shadow of it is a chop saw, which is my I've only got the chop saw and the angle grinder for processing material lengthwise. I do want to maybe at one time get myself a little bandsaw. I tried a portal bend thing, didn't like it too much. Anyway, the reason I have and this is my face mask. When I'm working in here, I wear that every single time with hearing protection. So you only get your one lung, and you only get one set of eyes, you ruin them. They're done for good. Okay? The reason I have a separate containment area for grinding, especially for that machine and that abrasive chop saw, is because there are precision instruments, well, precision machine tools sitting in the main garage. I don't want grits being introduced into there. I don't mind the hand sanding. I think I can contain that within just that table. However, with this kind of machine, the grits are going absolutely freaking everywhere. I don't want to introduce that into any machine ways or tapers or things like that and ruin it. Because it doesn't take a lot, even though they are hardened, but it's just safer to do it this way. Anyway, thank you if you have watched all this way. Thank you for supporting me like so, and I hope you actually quite enjoyed what you've seen, and maybe it gives you some ideas about how you might want to set your shop up. Honestly, if you're just a knife maker, this is all you need, really. You don't need half the fancy crap I have in there. I dabble in machining, that's why I have that, and I kind of want to try and get some production stuff out there, that's why I have all that. If I could do it again, I think I might buy a small water jet machine from one of those companies that make prototype water jet machines that's got a space of like 100 by 600 by 300 space or something like that. I believe that might be just about the same price as the milling machine, but I might make it easier, but then again I wouldn't be able to do any machining, so you know, it's tough to tell. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed seeing someone else's workshop. I always do, and that's why I figured I would do one of my own. Alright, take care, eh?